Hey, welcome back. Business 163, Personal Finance. This is now video number 5, our last video in this module that I'm going to give you, all right? And in this module, as we sort of wrap up our discussion about saving, as I promised you in the previous video, right? This particular video, the last one in this series, Making Savings Easier, is all about some proven strategies and even some psychological tricks to help us overcome some of the reasons why saving is so darn hard, why it's difficult for us to really get any traction. Well, here are some tips and some tools that you can try out that have been proven to help us save better and to make it easier for us to save. All right, so let's jump right in. Here we are. Title screen, Making Saving Easier. We have already talked about in the last video how hard it can be. Well, as you can see here, we know the enemy, and it is us. We can be our very own worst enemy when it comes to saving. Our habits, our inertia, our procrastination. These are all some of the reasons why it's so hard, but we can also be our very own best ally in savings. And that's what we have in this particular slide deck, this particular lecture, are some proven strategies that are backed up by research, evidence, and data to help human beings save better and save easier. So here is the very, very first suggestion we can give you. Harness the power of pre-commitment. What does that mean? It means that, generally speaking, behavioral scientists tell us that we think of ourselves in two very different ways. We conceptualize ourselves in terms of our present self, and then we also conceptualize ourselves in terms of our future self. And that may be, sort of in the next 10 years or maybe in the distant future, depending how old or how young you are, but we have a different vision of ourselves as a future self. Generally, that is the very best version of ourselves we hope ourselves to be, wiser, more mature. Some of those, maybe the rough edges of our character have been buffed down and polished, and we have this vision of our future self. And the problem is, when we have this great disparity, this huge gap between our present self and our vision for our future self. But we do tend to treat our future self better, and we can take advantage of that through the power of pre-commitment. Now, what does that mean? Let me give you this example. True study. You take two groups of people, let's talk about tax refunds. And if you take some people and you ask them, some of this test group, and you say, in February, hey, you don't know yet whether you're getting a tax refund. It's February, and taxes aren't due to be filed until April 15th. So you're still several months before you file your tax return. You don't know that you're going to receive a tax refund this year, but if you do receive a tax refund, what percentage of that would you like to save? So we asked them that question. And then we took a second group of people and asked them after April, when they have already received a tax refund. Okay, so now it's no longer in doubt with the second group. In April, we tell them, hey, you got a tax refund. That's great. How much of that would you like to save? So you understand the difference here, right? And for the folks in April who already have the tax refund in hand, on average, they will say, I'd like to save 17% of that. That's the numerical average. However, for the group in February, you can see there, it's an enormous difference. They are committing, on average, to save 27% of their of a potential tax refund that they're not even sure they're going to get. But if they get it, they'd be willing to commit to 27%. Why the disparity? Because if you ask them in February, they're making a promise, they're committing to their future self to save more. Well, take advantage of that tendency in human nature. Pre-commit to a level of savings now before you're staring at the money in your hand. And now you can stay honest to the commitment you are making to your future self, maybe months in advance, right? So that you can increase your level of savings that you've already committed to. The power of pre-commitment. Well, that's one tip right there. Here's another tip. Use transition moments to your advantage, all right? We all go through many transition moments in our life. Job changes, promotions, we receive a bonus, we get married or we get divorced or some sort of relationship change, right? Use the human nature fresh start effect to be specific about a positive transition. We all like to think of, we enjoy the premise of a fresh start in life, even if it's a small fresh start. Well, use these transition moments emotionally and mentally and psychologically to create that fresh start for you, a chance to do things a little better. Here's a way you can do that right now. On your calendar, on your smartphone, set a meeting event on your calendar for the day before your next birthday, the day before your next birthday, and commit at that meeting, even if it's just with yourself, commit at that meeting to make that financial change that you've been struggling with on that day, so that what? You're starting your new age, your new year, the way that you want to start, the way you've been hoping and trying to and struggling with the planning, right? When you use the psychological phenomena of the fresh start effect, you will be able to commit to it more easily, and it will feel more positive to making that change. So that's number 2. Here's another one. Get a handle on small, frequent purchases. Because the small, frequent purchases, many times that may be for food or for ride sharing or one of a number of different things that seem relatively small, but man, it adds up, right? And it adds up to what? Death on your savings by 1,000 cuts. Because every $13 spent there is $13 you're not putting in savings, right? And so your savings account is dying the small little death by 1,000 cuts. Well, how do you get a handle on small frequent purchases? Sometimes it's by making those purchases exponentially more difficult. What does that mean? Well, you will see one of the supplemental videos I've given you is Wendy De La Rosa, who teaches on personal finance at a number of places, including the Wharton School of Management. And she was having a problem with ride sharing. She would spend too much money on ride sharing because, well, she lives in New York, and so that's the way a lot of people get around. But she was just spending more than she had budgeted. And so what did she do? She actually unlinked her bank account from the app. What does that mean? For those of you unfamiliar with ride-sharing apps, typically the ride-sharing app works most conveniently and quickly if it's already pre-linked to your bank account. So with one single push of a button, boom, your ride share is paid. However, if you unlink your bank account, that means it's far more difficult to actually pay. It means you have to go through several clicks and several steps to make that payment, which makes every single transaction that much more difficult because you have to add more clicks and make it harder to actually spend the money. What's the point? You see it. Last 2 bullet points. The more clicks you're required to make, the harder it becomes, and therefore, over time, the less frequently you'll make that purchase. It may not be ride-sharing apps for you. It may be some other thing. It may be DoorDash, right? Maybe some other, or maybe the fact that you've linked your bank account to your Starbucks or Peet's Coffee account, right? So it's just very quick and easy for you to buy coffee without ever really feeling like you're making a financial payment, right? It doesn't hurt you, right? Well, make it hurt you. Take control of those purchases by disconnecting the ease and the convenience with which you make those. And if you have to pay it, oh my goodness, in cash, right? It'll feel a lot different, and it'll be easier for you to get control of some of this death by 1,000 cuts kind of spending that we all have in our lives, all right? Alrighty, that's 3. Here's number 4. Automate your savings. Many banks have an auto transfer feature that every month on the same day it will transfer a set amount from your checking to your savings account. If you are the type of person where your paycheck is direct deposited into your checking account, you can very easily set this up so that the transfer to savings is completely invisible and automatic. Makes it really easy to save money that way because you don't really have to do, anything other than continue to earn your paycheck, and your savings will build every month. Or if that's not how you're able to automate your savings, maybe just simply build the habit of saving something every single day. Every single day, 7 days a week, save a little bit, even if it's just $1 or $2, right? Here's another way to automate your savings: by encouraging yourself by making your savings visible. Maybe you use a glass jar to collect all your spare change, or that $1 a day. Or maybe you save via an online account that you promise yourself you're going to check every day at 7 o'clock p.m. just before you take your first bite of dinner, or first thing in the morning, or whatever it is, right? Make your savings visible, and that will encourage you to continue to track that ever-growing amount. That's suggestion number 4. Here's a 5th suggestion. Make your future self more vivid. Remember, I just mentioned a couple slides ago that we all have a vision of our current self and a vision of our future self. Well, here's the deal. The closer you can align your current self with your future self, the better you will treat yourself. And savings is just one aspect of treating your future self better. Try to actually envision what your daily life looks like in 1 year, or 3 years, or 10 years. In fact, one of the supplemental videos I provided you talks about an experiment they did where they used software to visually age a person, to sort of artificially, what would you look like when you're old and gray? And that as they showed that to people, as a result, people having a more vivid image of what they would look like in 10 years, 20 years, guess what effect that had on their savings? You're right, they saved more aggressively and they saved more frequently. Here's another way that you can make your future self more vivid. Write a letter to your future self. Maybe, write it to yourself and date the letter 5 years in the future. And in that letter, congratulate yourself for meeting some long-term financial goals that you're setting right now. Be very specific. Write yourself that letter. Hey, I just want to congratulate myself. I want to congratulate you on meeting this long-term goal, because like we promised all the way back in 2021, we have now saved this amount of money and we've been able to buy that piece of furniture and get that new car and go on the 2 vacations we plan. Make it very specific and vivid. The more vivid you can make your future self to you, the better you will be able to treat your future self in the here and now. Well, that's 5 tips. And so this last slide, I want to tell you, what is saving all about? Savings is about committing to building your own future, taking control of today for the sake of tomorrow, to make better decisions today for a better tomorrow, for the sake of your future self. And that is really the message of this entire module. The reason you're doing this is that embarking on this journey of savings is so that when those unexpected surprises come, they won't injure you. When those unexpected, costly repairs or emergencies happen, you're prepared for them. You are treating your future self better by not allowing your future self to go through the stress of not knowing how you're going to pay for certain unexpected events, right? As well as you are treating your future self better by preparing for those future long-term financial goals that you really want for your future life, and you're now building the foundation to actually secure those things in your future. Important stuff, right? And I hope that these tips, suggestions, and even the analysis we did about different types of bank accounts and different vehicles to save, I hope all of this is helpful for you as we begin to incorporate savings into our larger framework of our financial plan and our budgeting. Thanks so much for your attention to this module. We'll see you in the next module.